Okay, so we're doing a little properties review today. Here are the big properties. I got a list of 8 of them anyway. And this one is the one where if it's a multiply, they can change into an add problem. This one, if it's a divide, they can change to a subtract problem. This one's the M comes down to the front, and then you've got it looking like this. That's called the powers, or the there's the product rule, the power rule. There we go. This one is the product rule. This one is the quotient rule. All right, anyway, this one is a base change. Remember, if you want to put this in the calculator, you go log B over log A. This one's the one where if these two are the same, then the answer is the exponent on that one. So the answer is 1. If there is ever a 1 here, then the answer is 0. If there's ever a 0 here, there is no solution. And here, if it's A and an A, these two are the same, then that one's the answer. The answer is X. All right, so I'm going to run you through a few paces on that. We'll see if you know what to do. First of all, what if I had log of X to the 4th over Y? You can write that as something else, expand it out. Use a pencil or a pen. Don't want you just thinking. Thinking's good, but writing engages a different part of the brain. All right, this should have been log X to the 4th minus log a Y. Except you could make that even better, couldn't you? What could I fix? Yes? Yes, you should put the 4 out front. Otherwise, you did not expand it all the way. Now, by the way, does this have a base? Yes, they all have a base. It's just if it doesn't say what it is, then what is it? 10. What if I change these logs to the word ln? Then what base does it have? E. All right, good. Moving on. Not that one. We already did one like that. Let's go with log base 17 of 17. That's the answer. All right. What if I put to the 0 here, and you weren't sure whether this was no answer or the answer was 1? Because you were confused between two properties. I know which one it is, but the point is, let's say you forgot. How can you check yourself? Set it equal to what? And then you'd rewrite it in the other form, which would be 17 to the equals. And then you'd ask yourself, how can I take 17 and turn it into 0 with a power? I can't do that, can I? So the answer is no answer. No answer. 0 with a slash through it, or empty set, or no solution. All right, how about this one? Log base 17 of 1. That answer 0 or 1 or what is it? All right. If I wanted to check you and see if you're right, I'd go 17 to the x equals 1, and I'd say x. Yeah, if x was 0, it would work. So x must be 0. Okay. How about this one? Log of x minus log 2 log of y. That could be written condensed. Squished down into a simpler problem. Try condensing that. So do you realize if it's a subtract problem that I could make it into a divide, right? And you see that 2 there? Right here in front? That 2 means it could go on the y, so it would be a y squared, and it'd be a log of some fraction, and it'd be x on top and a y squared on the bottom. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, good. That's called condensing. Solve for x. Whenever they're in this mode, change them to the other mode. This is log mode. What's the other mode? Exponential. So I could rewrite this as exponential, and it would be what to the what equals what? P to the Q equals x. And I asked you to solve it for x. So what's the answer? P to the Q. What if I had asked you to solve for P? You'd rewrite it just like I did, and then how do I get the P alone? Put it to the 1 over Q power on both sides. P is equal to Q to the, no, x to the 1 over Q power. All right, try this one. Log base m of x equals g. Solve for x. And then solve for m. There's solve for x. You just rewrite it in exponential. Solve for m. X to the 1 over g power. And as soon as I change that g to like a 7, I could change the g to a 7 everywhere. Okay? All right. Use a calculator if you like. Solve that. The main thing is, did you know you should do this? 1/2 to the 10th equals x. And you just take 1/2 to the 10th power, which is 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. So it's a really, 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 really small number, right? Did it give you one of those EE kind of answers? What does it say? 9.76 e to the what? That means take the decimal and move it where? Left 4. Think of it this way. Do you get that this should be a really small answer? 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. That's why you move it to the left. Or you could think of it this way. If there's a negative there, that means move the decimal left. All right. Let's say I wanted to graph that. Well, you know what it looks like if I asked you to graph this, right? What's log base 10 look like? Kind of like that, right? What would log base 5 look like then? I'll do it in blue. Not as tight to the axis, right? Take a wild guess then. What log base 1/2 would do. Yeah, you're right. Not just straight up, beyond straight up. Instead of, like, here's straight up, right? Here's the actual answer. This keeps rotating around that point. If you wanted to graph this, to see it on your calculator, to see if you think I'm lost my mind, you couldn't just type in log base 1/2 of x, but you could if you knew how to do a base change. This would be log x over what? Log 1/2. Use your calculator, type that in, graph it. Log x divided by log 1/2, graph. log x over log, you have to trust me, I have a 1/2 in there. And you get to zoom 0, or zoom 6, I'm sorry, zoom 6 would be good, just fine. And you hit graph, and there it is. See how it still goes through that one point that they all go through? Spot right here. Why does it go through that again? Because at x is 1. If x is 1, I put a 1 right here, then log base anything, I'll call it q, of 1 is equal to p, would be p to the q has to equal 1, and q to the, sorry, I did that wrong, q to the p has to equal 1. Sorry. Q to the p would have to equal 1. And the only way to get that to always happen is if p is 0. So in other words, bottom line, my answer has got to be 0 right there. Right here, this spot right here has always got to be 1, 0. Okay. One more property. I want this, you want to use that base change thing again, and I want this, which is currently in base 12. I want you to write that in base 32. Don't bother doing this calculator. I don't want the decimal for it. How do I do this as a base 32? Well, go to what you know about base changes. You generally would write log 7 over log 12, wouldn't you? That's a true statement, isn't it? Yes, but that has base what? 10. Couldn't it be other bases? Yeah, I could make it base E. That would be ln. I could make it base, what did I ask you for? 32? Then I could make it base 32. There. There's my answer. Nope. Because your calculator can't do base 32 anyways. So if I asked you to change this green one into base 32, there it is. Nope. Now, really though, your calculator would rather just do it any other way because all the answers are the same. That answer is exactly the same as if you type in this. Do you get what I'm saying? Because the proportion, it stays the same. The other one it would be the same as is this, ln 7 over ln 12. It can be any base. This just happens to be base what? E, this one's base what? 10. I made this one base 32. It's the same answer. All right. Okay. I think we've done enough practice on properties for right this second. I'm going to look at the questions you have for homework now and see if you're ready for those. So there's your first one, number 23. Log base 2 of 7. And it says, use your calculator. So what are you going to type? Log 7 over log 2. Done. You get the decimal and you're done. Super easy. Okay, that's the first kind of problem. The next few problems, as we move towards 35, say write this using only natural logs. Log base 3 of x. This is number 29. How can I write that with a natural log? Another way to say that is write that with a base of e, so they want me to change the base. So it's base change. We just did those. How do I change the base to base e? Well, how do I always change the base? Log x over log 3, and then you can pick any base you want. What base do they want you to pick? ln, which is base e. So you could do it like this. I'd even accept that, because it means the exact same thing as okay. That's another typical question from the homework. And then they do another one where they ask you to rewrite it using base 10. Once again, it's just base changes. So the only new thing for today is base changes. The stuff we had before that was either condense this down, like log x plus log y, and that would condense down to log of what? xy. That's a condensed problem. Or it could be an expand problem, where they like give you this, log xy, and you have to expand it out to log x plus log y. Now they get a little more intense when they become like x squared over and then p, but you can make them into, okay, divide means it's a big subtract problem. Okay, so I'd have to rewrite this one as log x squared y minus log p, and then I could split this one up into log x and log y being added, and then I could take that little 2 and drop it down in the front, so it would be 2 log x, and then multiply, change it into an add log y minus log p, and there is the expansion for that. Yes, ma'am. I would not need, or if you had parentheses here, it would help, but it wouldn't be mandatory. Because if there'd have been a plus in there, then you would need the parentheses. But since it's a times, it'd be all right with them or without them. All right, we're going to do more practice on this tomorrow. So your assignment is just to add those few problems I showed you to what you had for last night, which in my classes was page 317, 2 through 22, the evens. I just had you do the evens in that section. If you want to do more practice, you could go do odds in that section too, because originally was page 317 all, 1 through 22 all. So if you feel like you haven't got enough practice, you can always do those. There are answers on Schoology for this stuff. They may not have been handwritten lately because the person who usually does that has had a sick kid, and so it's been harder to do that kind of thing. But the answers for chapter 3 should be posted on Schoology. If they aren't, I'll make sure that they get up. The book answers, they just aren't as good because it's hard to read what their work is and stuff. But the book answers should be there.